Hey, Blackout Lover, welcome to. Glad to have you with us. We're in Las Vegas tonight, so I'll be doing a tour through the casinos and seeing if we can find Rosie somewhere. Wouldn't that be something? Meet up with Rosie tonight. Yeah, glad to have you with us. I don't know about some of these cars, but they're going too damn fast as far as I'm concerned, so I may need to report this. Hey, Janie. Good to see you. I'm just mentioning I'm in Las Vegas, and so I'll be doing a tour of some of the major casinos, do a little bit of gambling, you know, the blackjack table, roulette, and I've got front row seats for Celine Dion, or is it Wayne Newton? I can't remember. Okay, we're not really in Las Vegas. We are still in Seattle. I can't fib. So, anyway. Embry Rose, welcome to you.
Gonna have myself a real good time. I feel alive, and the world turning inside.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
So don't stop me now.
Oh, that looks beautiful, man. It has a such beauty all its own.
A shooting star leaping through the sky like a tiger, defying the laws of gravity. I'm a racing car passing by like Lady Godiva. I'm gonna go. There's no stopping me. I'm burning through the sky, yeah. 200 degrees, somebody call me Mr. Fahrenheit. I'm traveling at the speed of light. I wanna make a supersonic man out of you. Don't stop me now. I'm having such a good time. I'm having a ball. Don't stop me now. If you wanna have a good time, just give me a call. Don't stop me now. I'm having a good time. Don't stop, yes, I'm having a good time. I don't wanna stop at all. I'm on my way to Mars on a collision course. I am a satellite.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that, Janie. Yeah, I do too. I have some shows to catch up on. Have you guys heard of one called, is it called Dark Skies? It's kind of weird. It's this old couple that found a portal to another world. And I got maybe 4 or 5 episodes in. I'm still trying to figure it out, but I got to get back to that. Well, good to see everybody. The title is kind of weird, Facing Our Demons, Leaning Into Our Pain. I'm not really, it's more like human instructions for how to be happy in this world. But so I'm going to begin with a song. I'm not going to sing for you. I wouldn't torture you.
When the days are cold and the cards all fold and the saints we see are all made of gold, when your dreams all fail and the ones we hail are the worst of all and the bloods run stale, I wanna hide the truth, I wanna shelter you, but with the beasts inside, there's nowhere we can hide. No matter what we breed, we still are made of greed. This is my kingdom come, this is my kingdom come. When you feel my heat, look into my eyes, it's where my demons hide, it's where my demons hide. Don't get too close, it's dark inside, it's where my demons hide, it's where my demons hide. Curtains call, it's the last of all. When the lights fade out, all the sinners crawl. So they dug your grave and the masquerade will come calling out. choice you've made. Don't wanna let you down, but I am hellbound. Though this is all for you, don't wanna hide the truth. No matter what we breed, we still are made of greed. This is my kingdom come, this is my kingdom come. When you feel my heat, look into my eyes.
Okay, you get the idea. That's a cover by Jada Facer, Facer. I don't know if that, maybe it's French, maybe it's Facer. But very beautifully done. And I'm getting a little copyright heads up, so that I not press my luck with it. But anyway, I want to talk to you about demons. And, we all have them, right? One of the words I have up there is diabolos, and that is something you find in Scripture. It's actually Koine Greek, which is the language the New Testament was written in. And that word is used throughout. And as you can see, it says to divide by lies or slander. Now, that should sound pretty familiar to us here, because there's an awful lot of people telling lies, and half-truths are the worst kind of lie, don't you think? Yep, Embry said. And slander, and of course that's the 8th commandment, bearing false witness. So it's pretty important. But the diabolos, or the devil, is basically active within us. We have our demons, right? We have our angel on one corner, and hello, Blinky, good to see you. Always great to see my Australian friends. So it means to divide and to conquer people by putting enmity between them, certainly by lies and deception. And then Satanas is another Koine Greek. This isn't contemporary Greek, but the Bible is written in ancient Greek called Koine. Koine Greek, it would be the term Satanas, which obviously refers to Satan. And it's not dividing by lies, it's not separating people up and forming little cliques, but Satanas is just the opposite. It unites in hate bonding. We've heard that term, haven't we? Hate bonding. So to crush your opponent, you kind of like on the night of Kristallnacht, when the Jews were rounded up and the synagogues and the businesses and the Jewish homes were destroyed and people killed. A hate mob. And we have those as well. We have people that act out in Satanas in a way that destroys individuals that are targeted, basically. So anyway, I just want to start off with that. In order to achieve the best, you have to look at the worst. And by the way, I'm watching the Mariner game as they're playing Washington, and we're in the 2nd inning. I should be at the ballpark, but I'm here with you because I love you, right? Not going to lie. Okay, that might have been a little fib, but I would love to be there. But no, I think this is an important conversation. I hope that you all enjoy it. And I wanted to start off with those two words because they're probably as frequently used, not the Koine Greek, but certainly the activity of those two words, more than anything else down here in drama, drama community, true crime. Wow, I'll tell you what's a real crime. It's the behavior of some of the people in the true crime community, that is for sure. A lot of fake people, right? So, fake narratives, people who lie. So I wanted to share a little bit of that with you. I think it's nice to try to bury the hatchet and try to reconcile with people, but sometimes to them, to certain people, bury the hatchet means burying it in the back of your neck. And you don't want that. You don't want to be backstabbed. So, there's jealousy and revenge and hatred. And sometimes I'm not so sure people really know why they're angry. They're just unhappy in life. And I really want to take off on that topic. But they want to fight with somebody. So if it isn't a mob mentality, and many of them get in line for that, there's an awful lot of human piñatas, people getting beat up on here. So, there has to be some answer to that. I want to talk about addiction too, and compulsivity, which is similar, right? I put that little tiny snippet of a video about Las Vegas because talk about addiction, gambling addiction, right? Well, there's all kinds of addiction, really. So I did want to talk about that. Let's see. I don't want to lose my place here. So I'm going to show you a rat, and let me get off screen here. Hopefully you'll see the little rat image coming in. And it's got a little question mark there. I think that's supposed to be cocaine, right? And he's got rolled probably $100 bills there right in front of him. So I want to talk a little bit about addiction and compulsivity and human happiness and mostly human unhappiness because of addiction and compulsivity. But I want to begin by telling you a little story. And it has to do with the 2 water bottles and the rat, okay? So here we go. There's 2 water bottles inside of and this is actually an experiment that took place in a laboratory professional environment. Hey, don't try this at home. But professionals who often work with mice and rats decided to do something different. One of the bottles, there's 2 water bottles put in there with a solitary rat, and one has just plain ordinary water in it, and the other one is water but is laced with heroin or cocaine. All right? And what happens when a rat or a mouse is put into that environment, they almost always prefer the water that's been drugged, and they almost always will kill themselves within a couple of weeks. Well, that's our theory of addiction, at least in my opinion. Okay? Someone comes along and says, well, wait a minute. We're putting the rat in an empty cage. It's got nothing to do. Of course it's going to not want to, what has it got to live for, right? What about that rat's future? So what they did was, and this is what they actually did, they said, well, let's do things a little bit differently. So they built a rat park, okay? With everything a rat would love to have. The rat park is like heaven for the rat. And that's actually happened now. So everything the rat could want is in the rat park. Lovely food, lots of sex, lots of other rats, friendly ones. Everything a rat could want is there. Friends, little colored balls to play with, entertainment, plus the water bottles. And again, the water bottle, one is just plain ordinary water, and the other one is still drugged with cocaine or heroin or cocaine, okay? So, but now the rat is in Rat Park. This is different. Guess what happens? And this is what they found by observation. The rat that is in Rat Park, unlike the one who was isolated by himself, what was fascinating is they don't like and much bother with the drugged water. They hardly use it at all. None of them overdose. None of them use it in a way that looks like compulsion or addiction. Let me bring up an image for the water bottles. I want to give you what most studies say ought to be done about addiction and compulsivity. And they're on the left and the right. And, you know, the left-wing view of things, the left-wing theory of addiction would simply say that what it takes is, your brain has been hijacked. Now maybe you've got a chemical imbalance, and we've got to get you help. But on the right side, they talk about moral failure. So on the left side, you got a defect in your brain, and we'll give you a pill that will sort of rebalance your brain's, chemical imbalance. If that fails, we're going to just make you pull yourself up by your own bootstraps and morally tell you you're screwing up, knock it off, by sheer willpower, we expect you to change. All right? And both of those things, unfortunately, they fail. I'm not saying that they're to be tossed out. It's not an either or. But the bottle in the middle is what I want to talk about tonight. It's both and. Both those left and right hand bottles of saying that, we have to understand the brain and if it's damaged, and we have to understand why people make moral choices that are not good for them. But in the middle, what's I think even more significant, in addition to the other two, is the fact that we're back in Rat Park, right? Your cage, your hood, where you live, your well-being. It all depends upon or contingent upon relationships. What's your environment like, right? Are you being nurtured? Nurture, nature, environment, what is that? What's going on there? Are you bored? Do you have nothing to stimulate you? So it's not entirely morality, just choosing good versus bad. And it's not always your brain going off. Some of those things could be factors. There's no question about that. But oftentimes it's your cage. The cage, your environment, your hood, where you live. Addiction is largely an adaptation to your environment. I want to talk a little bit about Marilyn Monroe as well, just as an example to all of this. And I'm going to bring up an image. This is when they found Marilyn Monroe dead in her home, on the portico of her home in Latin, and this is, of course, the symbol. What do they call that? Coat of arms. And you can see at the bottom in Latin, so many of them are in Latin, Curtium Proficio. And what that means in Latin is, this is where my life ends. And then it was, actually, Marilyn Monroe died in that home. And it was ironic because also inscripted on the portico was the saying, Verbum sapiensi, which means a word to the wise. Verbum is word, sapiensi is wise. A word to the wise. And then it said, quo pluis habent, eo pluis cupient, which in Latin, I had to study Latin in school, means a word to the wise, the more they have, quo pluis habent, the more they want, eo pluis cupient. Which simply means Hollywood kinda killed her, or did, and took everything from her, demanded everything, and more than she could give. And that's certainly true for many. And it's oftentimes why people in very high places, very well-off people, end up addicted to substances or living very compulsive lives. So I wanted to just mention that, Exhibit A, Marilyn Monroe. So your cage, your hood, the middle bottle there, your well-being is contingent upon how well-suited you are to your environment. Like the rat in the rat park. If you're in a healthy, friendly environment, you will do better. If you're not, you will probably turn to something to anesthetize, right? Ease your pain. Okay? So that's one of the theories that doesn't often get talked about, but it does at times. That there's more simply than willpower, and there's more than simply medicating people who are struggling with addiction. Janie says, I'm listening intently, but Gwendolyn always wants me to hold her when she hears Stellar. Oh my God. Thanks. But in the middle, the water bottle that we really need to drink from, and I oftentimes hear there's an old expression that when each human being is born in this world, they have a heart-shaped hole in their heart. A heart-shaped hole. And of course, what that's referring to is, like any puzzle piece, you can fill it with drugs and it's not going to satisfy it. It doesn't fit. Or you can fill it with any type of addictive or compulsive activity like gambling or sex or computer, getting on here 24/7, or any other type of, whether it's alcohol. There's so many ways, power, ego, oh my goodness, there's just no end to it. So what's important to conquering addiction, in addition to all of these three bottles, is the central one, probably more important than any, and that is your environment has to be filled with healthy people. It's not to say that we can find that kind of environment, but we have to look for it. And we certainly need to be discriminating in terms of who we choose to have in our environment. And many times people choose exactly the opposite type of people that would help them, to maintain sobriety. Okay? So I wanted to just start off with that little story, mention Marilyn Monroe, bring up the image of the rat and Rat City, Rat Park. But addiction, basically, to get right down to it, as I understand it, is a substitute for something that we really need. I mentioned that heart-shaped hole in every human's heart. There is no substitute or quantity of substances like drugs or alcohol or anything else that really satisfy or satiate that particular part of our humanity. The greatest addiction people have, we may not realize it, is that we're addicted to love, like that song. We're made for love. That is something that we absolutely must have in our life. That brings up a whole lot of other questions. It's not to say that if you're unloved, you're going to choose something less, but quite often that does happen. About 55% of marriages end up in divorce, and then ask yourself how many other marriages that aren't divorced are probably not necessarily happily ongoing marriages. They're probably people struggling. That's not to say that that's true in every case. But I think that in order to achieve the best, we have to honestly take a look at the worst. And we really have our work cut out for us if we want to find happiness in this world. All right? Addiction is certainly, and compulsivity in any of the forms that I've mentioned, is not a fit for that heart-shaped hole in the human heart. It just isn't. Okay. Nothing will really fill that hole except genuine love, whatever that is. And that's a whole other discussion, really. But if we try to fill it with something else, like food, Janie mentioned, yeah, we'll be yearning for more food and more food. And we know people who live for food. And of course, if you live for something that is not filling the heart-shaped hole in your heart, you'll probably overdose, or ultimately you might even destroy yourself. It certainly doesn't satisfy, and we can become lost rather easily and hopeless, right? But we can get back on track. When we talk about love, let me come back on camera. I got to find myself here. Sometimes I just don't know where I am. Here I am. Okay, somewhere. Anyway, I've named this room Piers, because it's not Cheers, the bar, but Piers, because hopefully this will be a friendly place to come and talk. It's temporary in my experiences. Yeah, I think a lot of times, like for me, my drug of choice is chocolate. It shouldn't be. Love should always be. But when I indulge in chocolate, I get an instant gratification. I get this little shot of happiness. And it goes through my whole physiology, and I'm feeling pretty darn good about it. It's a kind of food. I'd say, yeah, maybe it is a food group, not really. But there's some good with dark chocolate, I'm told. But a lot of people like it, not everyone. Other people have their drug of choice. Is it bad for you? Well, everything in moderation. When we cannot moderate our life, then we're out of kilter. And that's where we're talking about addiction and compulsivity. A little shot of dopamine. And I think that's the key, It is a good feeling that we get, but it goes away so fast. And then with certain other forms of addiction, we need a larger dose of it. And more. And it just doesn't quite satisfy. And then sometimes we feel so inadequate, we wouldn't think of coming online unless we've had a couple of beers under our belt, right? Or something else. We won't mention it. There's lots of possibilities. But to kind of calm us down, make us a little bit of courage, right? A little shot of courage. And it's not necessarily something that is going to help us. Embry says, I was like that alcohol, even before I drank it, I could already feel the relief made. Well, yeah, I mean, there is an effect, absolutely. Embry, isn't there? There is an effect. And that effect sometimes relaxes us. I remember I was drunk once in my life that I can recall. Once that I own up to. And I think that's pretty true, accurate. And it was the day I decided to leave my religious community. And there was a struggle, obviously. There was tension. my superiors wanted me to stay. I was in formation in seminary. I was studying to be a priest. I didn't have very far to go. And they were not happy about me making the decision to leave. Now, this isn't something you do overnight. But ultimately, what I did one night, I went out with an ex-nun, former nun, and another guy who was in the seminary, and we went and had beer and wine and hard alcohol, and I combined it all, foolish as I was. And oh, did I get drunk. And I was fine for most of the evening. And then I remember riding back in the car, I suddenly realized I missed my calling. I was actually the funniest comedian in the world. Well, that's what I thought. I was wrong. But everything I thought about was hilarious. That's what alcohol and its effect had on me. It was amazing. Of course, an hour or so later, I was visiting the porcelain throne, which was good because I didn't wake up with a hangover. But Hybrid Pisces welcomed you. Good to have you here. Yeah, I'm glad you're here. Glad you can make the live. I'm not on live very often, so I just when the mood overtakes me, I just jump online. So anyway, the effect of substances can be very divergent as it is with people. You know, your mileage may vary. We don't know how it won't affect the same people the same way. But I think it's a matter of being able to put more of the good, healthy things, wholesome things in your life, that becomes your primary go-to fuel, as opposed to the things that we've been mentioning, like alcohol and food and drugs and gambling or sex. Sex can be addictive, all kinds of things, and many more. That when we lose control of that and they encompass or control our life, they become what we live for, and they control us. We have a very big problem that we're dealing with. So I wanted to address that tonight. I called this session Facing Our Demons, Leaning into Our Pain. And I think that's really all we can do is start off with honesty and face our demons. But love ultimately, I remember I had those 3 water bottles up there. I'll put those up here again. The traditional views and AA, and I really believe strongly in the 12-step. I'm a real believer in that. You need support, and there are steps to sobriety, and that you need to maintain those throughout your life. And there is a real desire, I think, that you have to stay the course. You can't do it alone. You're not capable of doing it alone. And all of the steps as they unfold help keep us on track. Not that we won't slip sometimes. And then there are other people that really face additional issues who may have, in fact, chemical imbalances within their brain or elsewhere. But in the middle, I'm just adding one more thing that I think is important. Even if you have great willpower, would you be willing to use that willpower if there wasn't some reason to, right? You might say, oh, hey, I'm a tough guy. I'm a macho guy. I'm not going to fail. You watch. And the willpower is not so much that you can, overcome your demon, but the reality that you don't want to fail in front of your friends and have them say, hey, you ain't so tough. So motivation and the middle bottle, the cage, right? The rat in Rat Park where everything is perfect. If our environment is improving, our chances of overcoming addiction and compulsivity will vastly improve. Let's see, I'll read this. Kay says, I believe love of self is hard to learn but powerful. Yeah, I really agree with you. Self-love is probably the first thing we learn, because you have to be held 25 times or so, they say, when you're a newborn. And the whole world revolves around you because you can't do anything for yourself. So you're nursing and you're dependent upon other people. And everything is a support system, and hopefully a loving one, hopefully. But as we get older, we realize we're not the only one at the center of our own little universe. And then people say to us, hey, knock it off, you're not the only one. You don't get your way all the time. You're going to have to share the television, share your toys. You're not going to always. So that is a wake-up call. And then sometimes parents tell us, "Hey, you're embarrassing me. Don't say that. Don't run." I remember a little kid ran up to me at church one time and said, "Oh, there's my last name. I've used my last name, but this child didn't pronounce it right and said, there's the Christian, and my last name sounds similar to Christian." It's a little different pronunciation. And ran up and kind of gave me a hug. And I'm looking down at a 2.5-foot tall human being. And then the parents yell over and say, Jilly or Johnny or whatever, say, "Hey, don't bother him. He's busy. He's doing something. Leave him alone." And the child is suddenly red-faced, embarrassed. You know, a young child who is just being natural. And what happens in moments like that is where we lose our innocence for the very first time. When Cherokee says love of self, we have to relearn and unlearn sometimes things that we're not okay to be naturally loving to others. You know, we shouldn't, sometimes children, you remember, you've seen children, we all have, and they don't want to say hello, they turn their face away, they're feeling rather shy. That's a learned behavior oftentimes. And we really need to help them unlearn some of those behaviors and relearn what I guess Jesus had to say, unless you become like a little child, right? Relearn that. You will not even enter the kingdom of happiness. So in order to be happy, we have to kind of become childlike, which is kind of saying, remember when you were a child and you were carefree and everything was new and everything was exciting and you had trust and you believe the world was a good, safe place. Now, I'm not saying we become naive and trusting of people we shouldn't trust. Not saying that at all. But I do think that we have to, in some ways, begin to trust again. Because with trust comes happiness. And with trust comes, really, those who trust have good self-esteem. I'm really glad, Cherokee, that you made that point. That's extremely important. Psychologists would probably be happy to hear this being said tonight, that the key to understanding mental illness is self-esteem. Most people who, let me come back on here, most people who really have difficulty, with pathology or dysfunction, whatever word you choose to use, it is because it stems from, in fact, the most dangerous people you'll ever meet are people with low self-esteem. If you meet people with low self-esteem, you're meeting people who are prone to road rage, who are prone to domestic abuse. People who have very low self-esteem do those kinds of things. They're dangerous people. We want people to feel good about who they are and build them up. And so it begins very young. Hybrid Pisces is, Monday was Lane Stanley Day in Seattle. I make a donation, or is it Lane? Yeah. Locally toward recovery every year in his name. You know, I'm going to have to beg ignorance there, or I would have to Google that. I'm not going to pretend to know what I don't know. So if you don't mind, fill me in on Lane Stanley, if I'm reading that right. I have this up on a screen, and I'm not sure if I'm reading that name correctly. So I'd appreciate if you would. I would be happy to. I probably should know if they're from Seattle. How did I miss that? So anyway, so mental health, good mental health, is contingent upon who you believe yourself to be and how you feel about yourself, and basically what you've come to believe and how you've been acting out your belief. Many of us are broken. Many of us have been wounded. I like to say this term. I've got people mocked me for it, but we're clumsy lovers. We bruise each other, and we do that because we've been bruised ourselves. That's why it comes natural to us. Hurt people, right? That's just the way that goes. But we can learn to heal, and that would be the key component. And if we never learn that lesson, we're going to always struggle with relationships and always struggle with probably addiction at times. Lane Stanley, original lead singer. And, oh, Alice in Chains. Okay, I should know that, shouldn't I? All the grunge bands here in Seattle, and I didn't know his name. Oh my God. Mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. I'm sorry, you should know. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of older though. You know, I kind of go back to, oh my God. See, when I'm winging it, I don't always get these names popping up in my head. Who's the guitarist that was? He sang at. Let's see. I know he sang at the Monterey Pop Festival. I'm not sure if he was singing at Woodstock. He's from Seattle, buried here as well. African American, great guitarist. You know who I'm talking about? See, that's my generation. And I came along a little bit late for grunge. In fact, I spent some years away from Seattle, and I think it was kind of during the grunge time. But wow, that had a huge impact, didn't it? Yeah, no, it's he would light his guitar on fire, and he went over, and he was pretty close with the Beatles. He was over in London for some time. Great guitarist. See, one of his songs with Dolly Dagger. What else did he sing? Oh, you know who I'm talking about, don't you? Come on, people. I'm not the only one elderly here. Everybody says hybrid. I always feel like people use that for an excuse, though sometimes I've been hurt. It's the last thing I'd want to do. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, what we want, I hope all of us would be to be well again. We need to get well. And getting well really has to do with finding the right people, the right community, and the right support system. And unfortunately, Jimi Hendrix, thank you. Oh my God, Jimi Hendrix. I don't know why that name didn't pop into my head. Yeah. So I think it's incumbent upon all of us to at least consider, kind of like what Muhammad Ali said, you know, if you're the same person at age 55 that you were at age 25, you've wasted 30 years of your life. Why haven't you grown? You know, we ought to think new things. We ought to feel differently about life, because life is about learning. Life is about change. Life is always about becoming a better human being. And I thought what Ali had to say was very profound. Yes, she does know her music. So, let's see. As far as love goes, I'd say a little bit, because that heart-shaped hole in our heart is, if we fill that, then I would suggest to you, though it's not a simple process, that we'll have a better time dealing with addiction and compulsivity. But love is what is the only thing that really can fit in there. And I couldn't really even tell you what love is myself. I can tell you what love isn't. You know, the best example of what love is, let me bring up, would be probably St. Paul, right? Love is patient, love is kind. Let's see, it doesn't boast, and so on. And you can read this. That's probably one of the best examples of what love is. I do think, though, that love is kind of a jump off a cliff, because if you love someone, you only control one half of love. The other half is controlled by the person whose love is you're directing it toward, and their love back to you. You're powerless. And all of us, we don't control. We want to. We'd probably like to. We think, well, hey, if I love you, then you should be a similar reply back. Well, it doesn't always work that way. You know, we don't control it. So it's kind of like skydiving. You know, you hope your parachute will open, and if it doesn't, you're in a free fall, and you're out of control. But that is what love is very dangerous, because you're opening yourself up, and it requires trust. And trust is contingent upon good self-esteem. You know, in other words, you've been loved by someone before, usually beginning with your parents, hopefully. Yeah, it's really half. Love is your half. And so the reason why that's so true is because it's contingent on nothing. It's unconditional. Right? Well, I'm going to love so-and-so. And are they going to love me back? I have no idea. I would hope so. But if they don't, I'm not doing it to manipulate them. Whatever they return in the love I give is going to be their love, hopefully genuine. We're not here to play games, but the love reality is two people who are whole, not half, not leaning on each other, but two healthy, whole people who are simply making a decision on their own to love when they love, how they love, with the quality of love, and not because someone else loved them first, simply because they choose to love. And oftentimes that's the example of love at its finest, is people are loving someone and there's nothing in it for them. They're simply doing it because it's the right thing to do. You know, I remember someone asked a priest friend of mine, what is a Christian? And his response was, he pointed to the wall to where there was a crucifix. A crucifix is the cross with the corpus, Latin for a body. So the body is on the cross. He said, there's your example. And he said, well, what do you mean? Well, he said, a Christian, you ask yourself, how good do you think you're going to look hanging on a piece of wood like him? That's what a Christian does. Love sometimes is sacrificial. You know, you lay down your life. Well, no, oh boy, I don't know, do I want to love that much, that intensely? Well, we do that for our children, or we hope we do. Some do, some don't. Some do it half measure. But the reality is we can learn. We can become better parents. I always think, parents should think about their relationship with their children, and one day say to their child, hey, Jimmy, Jill, thank you for making me a better human being. And they might say to you with a puzzled look on their face, what the hell are you talking about? What did I do for you? Well, I was so used to watching whatever television program I wanted. I'm so used to getting my way. When you came into our world, your mother's and mine, suddenly we had to think of you first. And I wasn't as selfish because of you. I became a person who thought of other people. And I think that's the real key, that we, when you think of love in its purest form, it gets nothing back. It asks for nothing back. It's simply sacrificial. A lot of people, when they realize, for example, a parent will take a child down to a soup kitchen or someplace where a child can be exposed to others who are struggling and tell them, look, we're going to do something so that we can show humankind that we give a damn. And the child has his first exposure to how to help other people who need help. And that's a learned behavior. And as we believe, so it becomes, and we become changed within our hearts. Extremely important that we do that. Hybrid Pisces says, Chair K, I love and use maybe I shouldn't be reading, you're talking to Chair K. Rotten fruit analogy, yeah. A rotten fruit bowl will cause, yes, that's right, one bad apple, that type of thing. Chair K says, let's see, hybrid understanding, when we do those things, it's how we grow. I always felt bad I would yell at my kids too. Tiffany Marie, welcome to you. It's delightful to see you. Absolutely wonderful. I'm so glad you're here. Tiffany and Marie and I have been engaged, and not engaged, engaged. We have been involved in various projects at times on the internet, some of which have cost us plenty emotionally. But on the higher end of the scale of things in the drama community, or wherever we call ourselves right now, in this, we sometimes want to try to raise the bar. If you aim low, you hit low. And we were trying to raise the bar a little bit in areas of social justice, having to do particularly with contributions. And, because really what revolves around our community here oftentimes is money and how it's used. And so I was very pleased to be able to work with Tiffany Marie on some of the St. Jude things. So I'm glad you're here. So I'm talking about addiction and compulsivity and how to fill that heart-shaped hole that gambling and food and sex and money and all kinds of other drugs and alcohol and you name it really doesn't fill. And what we require is something different. So I basically put up the three water bottles. we can't neglect on the left the brain issues that we may have, because a lot of times we have chemical imbalances and moral failure. We can't simply get people to do the right thing to help themselves by saying pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Thank you, Tiffany. You're very kind. I do appreciate your saying that. And what happening right now is a teachable moment. When Tiffany gave me a compliment, that is what builds people up. And nobody is too old for that. The cage and the hood, the center bottle, is all about compliments. Blanky, good to see you. I'm glad you were here. I'll leave this up, and hopefully, if you get a chance, love to have you come back. And if you want to leave a comment, I would love to read it. So great to see you. I've known Blinky for, 7 years, maybe going on 8 years now. Really long time. So this isn't an evening really where we're going to solve anything. It's simply throwing out ideas. This community has a lot of fractures, a lot of brokenness, and I think that we need to pool our ideas and try to do what we can to help people. So that's the goal that I have tonight. Okay? So I got to get back to where I was here, so we talked about Marilyn Monroe, the Latin inscription on her portico. And I want to talk to you about, you know what, with the water bottles, I'm going to take a short little, I'm not leaving, but I'm going to play for you something about a water bottle. This is our little comedy break, and this is my new hero, and he's a comedian. He's from Great Britain. I believe he's from London, and you may have heard of him. I see him on TikTok all the time. Chewz, Chewz, I think is how it's spelled. He's a big guy, 6'8", he's a basketball player. But you'll notice his British accent. But he is the funniest guy I've run into lately. Thank you, Blanky. So let's take a little listen to his water bottle humor, okay? Here we go.
Tomatoes? Yeah, and ranch.
Okay, let me get this straight. You want lettuce and tomato with ranch? No, I'm kidding, man. I love the British accent, dude.
Yeah, cool.
What do you want to drink?
To drink, can I just get...
What?
Can I get some water?
Don't you mean a bottle of water? A bottle of water? Hey, can I take your order?
Hi, can I just get a cheeseburger with extra chips? I mean fries.
Guys, chips. He's definitely British. And what drink, sir?
A water, please.
Okay, that'll be $9.95. Pay at the window. You're the British guy, right? Oh, my God. What you got, chips and a hamburger with, a bottle of water?
Are you done?
Dude, I'm kidding, man. I love Harry Potter.
Cool. I've got a discount coupon.
Let me see. Sir, this expired.
It's valid until Wednesday.
What day is it today, sir?
It's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday, innit? No, I'm kidding with you, man. I'm playing still. Here you go.
A bottle of water.
You got any idea how fast she was going? 60 maybe? Huh.
Okay. Let me see your license and registration.
Okay.
Wait, hold on. You the British guy on the basketball team, right?
Yeah, that's me. I'm the British guy.
You know what? They say I got a pretty good British accent myself, man. You know, they say I sound like Idris Elba.
Okay, I'm going to have to maybe just curtail it there, but you get the idea. So I don't want to catch, I don't want to see the blue screen of death here. The bottle of water. If you haven't seen this guy, he is hilarious. So, I mean, at least that's my type of humor. Missy, a.k.a. PSL, Pumpkin Spice Latte. Great to see you, Missy. I haven't talked to you in a while, and I feel bad. I got to start connecting back in our room, but great to have you with us. We're looking at kind of a variety of topics, but just basically human instructions of how to hopefully find happiness and live a better life, a more joyful life. So that's our comedy break. I'm going to talk to you about an umbrella. and I'm going to tell you a true story about an umbrella. First, I've got to find it here, and here it is. A friend of mine, a Jesuit priest, his name is just like the composer Tchaikovsky. That's his actual name. And he was in Japan for about 25 years. When he came back, and that's when I met him, quite a few years ago, he was assigned to a parish as a visiting priest. And he talked a lot about what happened in Japan. And he told stories about the culture. And one of them had to do with an umbrella. And basically, if you share an umbrella in Japan, and it's called, they call it Ayagasa, that is a sign of real affection. It's a sign of the possibility, at least, of love. And so they were sharing, he was sharing this story with the community. And the day that he was leaving, the last Sunday he was celebrating Eucharist, the people at church, to say goodbye to him, everybody all of a sudden stood up right at the end and opened up an umbrella as a sign of love and affection, and thanking him for being with them. And so, what a beautiful thing to do. We need, in social media, to open up the umbrella, the Ayagasa, in our lives. We really need to begin to see each other as the Irish say, no longer strangers, but friends we haven't met yet. I think that's extremely important that we do that. It's a simple thing. I'm not just talking about literally an umbrella, but I'm talking about, what it means is sheltering people from the rain. Sometimes there's a storm in life, turning to somebody who needs help. How often do we hear that? How often do people do that? So I think it's very important just to consider in sometimes what might seem mundane, very simple ways that we can reach out and help other people. Extremely important to do that. Okay? All right. Let's see. Where am I at here? I lost my place. Okay, Ayagasa. There are a lot of good behaviors, and a lot of times what we do is we try to, list all the negative behaviors. But there's something called appreciative inquiry, and it's a very simple idea. Yeah, Tiffany, it's just a beautiful thing. If you look at a lot of the boxes that are shipped from Japan, oftentimes you'll find an umbrella on the outside of the box, and you'll find a wine glass, which is a symbol of fragile, right? Fragile contents inside. And the umbrella, it could mean shelter from the rain, keep this box out of the elements. And also from Japan, it would have a deeper meaning, that this is sent with love. And so it's a symbol. It's nice for Americans to kind of grasp that symbol. It's just a wonderful cultural custom that they have. Okay, let's see. What else do I have here? I've got a short 4-minute TED Talk I was going to show you. I checked out if we're able to show TED Talks and live streams, and my understanding is yes, we can. It is part of, what do they call that? Basically, it is free of copyright, and we have the freedom to use it. So, what do they call it? Not open source, that's not it. Creative Commons, I think it's called. Creativity, where people say, look, you can use this, like appreciative inquiry is where people accentuate what's positive. And that was an idea started by this man who said, look, I'm not going to hog it and keep it for myself or make money on it. I'm going to share this concept of appreciative inquiry, which basically what they're saying is, if we have a debate or a problem, we're not going to start off with, hey, you asshole. We're going to start off with, hey, let's talk about something positive about you and accentuate the positive. That's why it's called appreciative inquiry. Welcome, Carla Ray. So basically, Creative Commons is it's an environment in which creators can share their creation rather than maintain it for copyright with anyone and say, look, you can use this. This is free for you to use. The idea is important enough that we want everyone to know about it. So it's that kind of thing. So the TED Talks are kind of based on that as well. Glad to have you here, Carla. Wonderful to see you. Okay. So we talked about Rat Park. We talked about the heart-shaped hole in every human being that can only be filled with love and can't be filled with addiction or compulsivity of any kind, and there are many, right? We talked about, I started off with the song Demons by Imagine Dragons, but Jada Facer was the one who sang that. And we have demons we have to look at. And in order to achieve the best, we have to remove them from our lives. So that kind of brings us up to the moment here. I did mention Marilyn Monroe, who was a tragic figure in American Hollywood, certainly. What we face, in addition to drugs and alcohol and food and gambling, is addiction and compulsivity for power. Or there's certainly sexual addiction and materialism. Think of it. Oh my God. Wall Street, Madison Avenue. They want us to sell us everything they can because of the profiteering that's there. But the only real aspect that fills that heart-shaped hole in every human's heart is relationships, people. Yeah, the Maryland part, and it's important because I think that she is a case example. This is on the home where she died. This was on the portico. You can see the coat of arms for Marilyn Monroe. And in this home where she died, it says at the bottom, Curt Suum Perficio, which means this is where I'll die. And it was where Marilyn died. And then also below that, now I typed this in because the shot I found was not including the entire Latin inscription. Verbum sapiensi. And that's why I chose that as my public email. Verbum means word, sapiensi in Latin means wise, word to the wise. And what was on Marilyn's portico that was a word to the wise? Quo pluis habent, which means the more they have, eo plus cupient, Latin, the more they want. So the more they take from you, the more they're going to want from you. That's the very nature of addiction. The more we consume of things that never satiate or satisfy, the more addicted we become. Instead, what we need is that middle water bottle of well-being. The things that we can have as much as a deep drink that we want. It's not filled with cocaine or anything else, but it's filled with love and the things that really satisfy ultimately in the end. And tragically, many people never find that, and they live their whole lives and they never awaken to what they truly needed, and they never found. And that's a real tragedy. So Marilyn was kind of, in a sense, I guess you could say, an example for all of us. And the tragedy that happens all too often in Hollywood. You think money is going to make you happy, and these people have no shortage of money. But the fact that we do see suicide, and we do see depression, and we do see a tremendous amount of dysfunction and pathology, not just in Hollywood, but among, who has the highest suicide rates? It used to be dentists. Dentists make good money, So we have to ask ourselves what's missing. And so that's what tonight has tried to be about. It's not a mystery. Yeah, she did. She liked barbiturates. That's right. And a lot of that was to anesthetize Marilyn from the Hollywood community that demanded so much from her that she couldn't give. And you think about these rock musicians. Oh my God! You go back to the '60s. How many of them didn't struggle with substances? And you're placed in a position where no one has been raised by parents who said, now look, here's how you're going to have to deal with this. There are a few that are raised by parents who have been in the music industry, but most of the time it's the first time they found fame and fortune, and there is no textbook for that, and it's a kind of learn as you go. Professional athletes are the best example of how to screw up your entire life, because suddenly you find yourself sitting on a huge nest egg of money. A good friend of mine an Italian man who was an agent for a baseball player for the Seattle Mariners. He doesn't play with them anymore, but he did. He was the second baseman. His name was Julio Cruz, and he's in at least the Seattle Mariner Hall of Fame. But this friend of mine was his agent, and because he knew Julio very well, he helped to set up a trust. And it was a way of ensuring that Julio and his family would be well taken care of. And so the money was doled out over a period of many years. In fact, Julio just died a few months ago. If you Googled Julio Cruz Seattle Mariners, you would see that. He had, I believe it was colon cancer or prostate cancer. I'm sorry. But we have to take care of each other. And this friend of mine, his name's Frank, he was able to do that for Julio Cruz. Extremely important that we need to advocate for one another and not become adversarial for one another. People are struggling online here. People are struggling everywhere, but especially in this community. And if we can do one thing right, then we need to reach out and try to help people. I had a wonderful, lengthy phone call today with someone. I don't need to mention who it was, but we talked about setting up a trust, setting up 301, and to be able to help people who are. It's not going to be me who's doing that, but it's someone else who has a strong desire to do that. And we can try to be there and advocate for others and make a difference in their lives. And sometimes we think, well, what can I do? You don't have to do very much. Sometimes just be a good listener. Just care enough. Give a damn. Try to do that much. And we will change this place one person at a time. It's not, we don't sign on for this. It's not my job. But we can be happier if we choose to take a different road, a different path. Okay? That's all I'm saying. I'm going to go ahead and maybe close up. I was thinking about playing this TED Talk. It's about 4 minutes. It's a young woman who had an idea, and she's not from the generation I'm from, where the way we communicated when I was young was by writing letters. Her generation is a generation that we're all experiencing, like right now. You simply email or you DM, right? You text message. You do something like that. If you send an actual snail mail letter, it's going to take 3 days to get there, and we don't even know when it'll get there or if it'll get there, but usually they do. And she decided to start a campaign in her city, in her university, and she didn't know what would happen. And she posted a number of statements that were written down, and she posted them on the sides of the wall and bulletin boards all over the place. And the next morning, the place was flooded with people who said, yes, I would love to receive a letter of encouragement back from you. And that's what started the whole thing. People really need help from one another and to be reached out to. We really do need that. And don't kid yourself and think that, we're strong, we can handle it. Not really. One of the things that I learned in studying first century society when Jesus was alive was that they thought it was foolish if you would set out on your own. In our country we say, well, go west, the great activity, be an astronaut, go your own way, be a pioneer, go and, discover gold. Well, you're all by yourself. It's dangerous. It's not a real smart thing to do. And the community in which the first century community Jesus was a part of said, that's the most foolish thing you can do, is separate yourself from your family, from your loved ones, from your local community as well. And that was the story of the prodigal son. Don't be so dumb as the prodigal son and go off on your own. Surround yourself with people who care. Find people who care. And there are some people. You may not find, you have to be very careful here. The people, I thought there'd be a whole, preponderance of people that would be, really wonderful people. And I found that isn't always the case here. you have to be very, very careful, very discriminating. Take your time getting to know. I remember one time, this is like the 8th year that I've been in this community, but I gave the advice one time, instead of telling somebody your name, even your first name or your eye color or your hair color, wait a full year before you tell them anything about what you look like. You'll find out a year from now why that was good advice. Be careful. Don't be naive. But there are people. We can't walk alone. It's important to find friends that we can trust. I'm not always sure, I'm not absolutely convinced that we'll find them here, but there are some good people, okay? So that's my last little bit of information. I wish I had brought information from Leo Biscaglia. He has since died. Leo Biscaglia was a professor at the University of Southern... I should be on camera here. Sorry, let me come on camera. What the hell? Sorry. You don't have to stare at the umbrella all night here. I'm trying to find myself. Here we are. Okay, emerge. Leo Biscaglia was a professor at the University of Southern California, and he was famous. He did a first-year university class called Love 101. And Leo, a very popular course with his young students, and he would teach them about something that we really ought to have as a course, probably starting in elementary school. But it was offered and it was extremely popular. And he taught them about love. Imagine that, something you would take for granted. Don't take for granted. People don't understand how to love. Oh, do we struggle with that. So Leo Biscaglia, it would not be a waste of your time if you Googled the name, and I'll type it here in the side chat. Some of the things he said were stunning. They're so... Leo... Let's see. Oh, I hope I spelled this right. It's kind of... he's Italian. B-U-S-C-A-L... Let's see. C-A-G-L-I-A. I think that's the right spelling. But it'll probably spell check it right for you. And he was a professor, a love professor. He'd written prolifically, many, many books. He's not with us anymore. But his writings are, and his inspiration. Some of his stuff was so good, you could put it down in blank verse, like poetry. It really just very, very inspiring. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and end this, and I'll leave this up. Hopefully I won't get a strike for some of the music I played. So that's it. My sidekick isn't here tonight, but I hope that she is feeling better. I wish all of you nothing but good health, and I'll do a live stream from time to time. I'm not sure what my next endeavor is going to be. I might do something on the greatest speech ever given, greater than the Magna Carta or the Declaration of Independence or anything like that, and it was the Sermon on the Mount. And within the sermon was the Beatitudes. If you want to be happy in this world, he gave us 8 ways to do it. So I may address that next. So thank you all for being here, and I wish you have a very good rest of your evening and day, and talk to you soon. You're very welcome, Chair. Good to have you with us. And I always type this in at the end. I tell people good night, and please stay off the lawn, not the grass. That's fine. So you can, I'm just saying don't step on the lawn, but the grass is fine, if you get my drift. And I know you do. Okay. Take care, everyone. Embry Rose, great to see you. Carla Ray, Tiffany Marie. Chair K, who did I miss? Let's see. Oh, Missy, good friend Missy was here. Blinky was here, my friend from Australia. Hybrid Pisces was here. Black Cat Lover early on. Whoever's still here, golly, I hope I didn't miss anybody. Not a big group tonight. Let's see. I think I've missed somebody here. Who did I miss? I thought I saw the word Diane. I think I'm seeing things. And Janie Bobaney was here as well. So thank you all for being here. And if I missed anybody, my apology. Black Cat Lover, 702. Good to see all of you. Have a good evening. Good night. Oh, I could take us out with, let's see. I've got a lot of intros and extras. Let's see here. Here's one. Hey, Voight, good to see you. Veteran of YouTube, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. We're going to have to chat.